everybody. Welcome to an official LED live and happy almost Reformation Day. You guys thought I was going to say it, didn't you? We're going to get into this discussion today, you guys, because we get a lot of questions with our ministry over these kind of topics. And so that's kind of what we're here for, right? We're doing research for you. Oh, you maybe don't even know what topic we're going to talk about. Halloween. Okay, there we go. All right. If you have any questions on Halloween, actually we requested the questions, so a lot of these kind of came from you guys. But I want to introduce to you Brittany. We shoot these shows sometimes, like a lot of them at once, and we actually shot a show where we introduced Brittany, which we haven't released yet. So you've probably seen her popping in and out of the shows, and so we want to officially welcome you to the show, even though you've worked with us for months now. But
2 months.
Yes.
Hello, everyone.
Yes, Brittany does our graphic design for us, so a lot of these awesome graphics, they come from Brittany. So
that's right.
Thank you for that.
You may have already interacted with her on social media because she helps with that as well.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. So let's dive into this. I don't know what the best place to start is, but we'll let you kind of take it away here.
All right. So the first question that we have is, what is the origin of Halloween and how did it come to the U.S.?
Okay, I guess that's me. I'm up. Hey, everyone. So I'm actually also the one in the chat, and as we discuss and say different things, not only will we have slides, but I'll also be putting all of our reference links, or at least the ones that are available to me.
Yeah.
I'll put those in the chat so you can follow along, because we literally just look this stuff up and we're here to present it to you today. So yeah, my question, go ahead.
And if you guys have a Bible, also, follow along with us. Read the Bible. Pick out the verses that we're saying, and so you can mark them down or something like that. Would be a good idea.
So the origins of Halloween, how far back do you think this goes?
Thousands of years.
Thousands, yes, that's correct. You think it started before or after Christ came to this earth?
Before.
Yeah.
Before, that's true. Back in the 3rd century BCE.
Wow.
The Celtics. So now I've been saying Celtics my whole life. That's incorrect. It's the Celtics. So there it is. The Celtics had a festival they called Samhain, but that's spelled Samhain. So now this religion, the Celtics, could be found in places like England and northern France and Ireland. Within the Celtics, what you would call the priests or the teachers, these people were called the Druids. And I wonder if that rings a bell to you guys. The Druids would actually light bonfires. Now these bonfires, they weren't like, oh, let's put some sticks together and light it on fire. No, they were actually like wooden cages that looked like humans. And within these cages were actual humans, and they set these things ablaze. Just to give a little insight as to what these Druids believed, I should post the link here for you guys. Here is the origins. This is from history.com. There you go. But I'll read the quote. It says, Pliny the Elder, and Pliny is he's a historian. He wrote of the Druids' appreciation for both the mistletoe, cough, cough, but we'll stay on topic here, and human sacrifice. To murder a man was to do the act of highest devoutness, he wrote.
Wow.
You guys catch that? And to eat his flesh was to secure the highest blessings of health. Have mercy.
Yeesh.
Tacitus even described a battle in Wales in which the Druids covered their altars with the blood of captives and consulted their deities through human entrails. So that's what we're dealing with here, the Druids, who loved blood and gore, and that is not an understatement at all. So while the Celtics were doing those things over there, Catholics in the 8th century, through Pope Gregory III, designated November 1st as a time to honor All Saints. Now soon, All Saints' Day incorporated some of the traditions of Samhain from the Celtics and the Druids. And the evening before, October 31st, was known as All Hallows' Eve, which today is known as Halloween. Which leads us into the next question. Okay, well, how did Halloween end up in the U.S.? Well, through the European immigrants. They brought their traditions and their practices when they came to the New World back during the times of like the Pilgrims and people trying to escape famines and religious persecution. Well, they brought all these ideas and practices with them.
Very,
It's a
very
wow for me.
dark past. You know, it's interesting that a lot of these things that we, you know, have in our modern world, it's like they have these really dark origins.
Yes. And we're not exempt just because we don't know. We should be looking up these things.
Right, right. The blessing of the internet, actually, you can find out some of these things. So, you know, can't claim ignorance really in this world.
Yep.
All right. So the next question, why do people disguise and ask for candy? So during my research, there's actually this article from history.com in 2019. It's titled, How Trick-or-Treating Became a Halloween Tradition. And so in 1000 AD, poor people would go to the homes of wealthy people, and they would, in exchange for soul cakes, which is these pastries that were given out on Halloween, the poor would offer to pray for the wealthy family's deceased members. And then later, this was later taken up by children, and so that's when they started giving out food, money, and ale. And then in Scotland and Ireland, children actually started dressing up themselves, disguising themselves, and instead of praying for the dead or pledging to pray for the dead, what they would do was sing a song, recite a poem, or they would do like some sort of like trick or like some type of trick, and then for then like collecting the treat. And so what we have today is basically a evolution of the past. And I think it's interesting because it's like we've almost tried to remove the roots to make it more comfortable for us to celebrate.
That's right.
You know, it's crazy. But yeah, this goes back all the way to like the Middle Ages. So it's been around for a very, very long time. So yeah, what we do today is just an evolution of that. Next question. Can Christians celebrate Halloween?
All right, I guess I'm up. So the short answer, which you're not going to like, is yes, but let me clarify, okay?
Everybody drops off.
Yeah. The Bible, in a couple of places, Paul actually mentions this in 1 Corinthians, one in chapter 10 and one in chapter 6. What I'm going here is a principle, okay? Context talks about, in one of them, it's Christians who are taking other Christians to the legal system of the day, and he's saying, really, you should handle these things in church. But he says this twice. He says that all things are lawful for me, but not all things are helpful, right? Or not all things are edifying. And he also says in 1 Corinthians 6, he kind of clarifies that. He says, I will not be brought under the power of any, okay? So there are things that he's saying, well, yeah, it's lawful, but you could be brought under the power of something just because it's lawful. It doesn't mean that you should. So I want to clarify that further with a couple of other texts. James 2:12 says, so speak and so do, as those who will be judged by the law of liberty, right? And Galatians 5:1 says, stand fast, therefore, in the liberty by which Christ has made us free, and do not be entangled again with the yoke of bondage. So as Christians, we have freedom because Christ has paid the penalty for our sin, right? And we've always really had this freedom of choice, but we've been freed from the bondage and the power of sin. And so when it comes to things that could keep us in bondage, yes, we're free, but we should avoid going back into bondage, if that makes sense. So, is it something that we can do? Yes, it's something that we can do on a technicality. Yes, I can do that. The question, I think, is more, should we? Well, if it's something that's going to bring you under bondage, things that are going to be sinful, then definitely we should not, right? We shouldn't be brought under the power of those things. Ephesians 5:11, of course, we've quoted this many times in the history of this ministry, and have no fellowship with the works of darkness, but rather expose them. I think the King James even says the unfruitful works of darkness. I used to have a boss who would razz me about my diet, and I was eating, a whole food, plant-based diet, and we'd have some company thing going on, and he would say, well, you can't eat that. And I always used to correct him. I always used to say, actually, I can eat that, but I choose not to because I know it's not good for me. So on a technicality, you can do all kinds of things. You have the freedom and the power of choice to do that. Should you? Well, the Bible speaks to those things as well, the things that you should and shouldn't do. So anyway. I think that's what made sense to me anyway.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, good thoughts. I mean, that just kind of makes you say, you know, God, we live in a world where God is allowing you the choice to engage in the things of this world or not. And it's like, you know, he's basically not just binding you, he's giving you that opportunity.
Right. So this next question says, why is the church so quiet when it comes to this unholy day? So personally, my church was not silent about this at all. They definitely talked about it, had seminars. They were pretty open. Like, this is an evil holiday. Do not celebrate it. I better not catch you at my door with a little basket asking for candy. And so this was clear to me through my church and also through my home. My mom always, like, she raised me, teaching me that Halloween was not something that we celebrated. So it was never practiced in our home. And so I think that sometimes when we talk about the church, we often forget that we make it up as individuals. And so our education ultimately should come from our home first and foremost. So if we each make the choice ourselves to not celebrate Halloween, that's something that can unify the body of Christ. You know, so it's not really, yeah, I don't know. Maybe some churches don't talk about it, but mine definitely has. So I don't know if I can group this in a collective thing.
Can I challenge you for a second?
Sure.
You know, obviously being a young person growing up in the church, how did the young people receive those kind of messages?
I mean, we just kind of grew up with it. You know, I did attend like a fall festival, but it wasn't an Adventist church. It was a Baptist church, and I was just going with my friend. But yeah, we just didn't celebrate it. It was just stay home, turn off the lights.
So the kids didn't really rebel against it, so to say.
Well, I don't know what they did at home personally, but we just didn't do things like that. Yeah. So yeah, just in my personal experience. So yeah.
Cool. Good answer.
So this next question says, lots of Christians say that as long as you don't take part in the satanic practices, it's okay to celebrate Halloween. Do you agree with this?
No. No, we do not agree with this. But it was an interesting question, which led me to another question, like, how do you celebrate something without taking part in it? So I don't really know where this person is coming from, but I couldn't really reconcile that. Like, you know, how do you say that we're celebrating this holiday but not partaking in the holiday? But I just like to bring up this Bible text, 1 Thessalonians chapter 5, verse 22. It says, abstain from all appearances of evil. So it's not necessarily just the evil thing. It's also the appearance of such things. An example that I love to use is decorating your home. If the outside of your home is decorated for Halloween, but on the inside you're not participating in Halloween, how will the person on the outside know what's going on in your house? So to circle back and invite that person to church or any kind of religious event, it could form conflicting ideas for that person, because no one is inside your home, but people form opinions and views based off of appearances. So just to be mindful of that. Another verse I love is Joshua 23, verses 13 through 16, which in synopsis is, it's saying, guard the avenues of your soul. But then it keeps going. God says, love God, your God, because if you wander off and start taking up with these remaining nations still among you, know for certain that God, your God, will not rid these nations of you. They'll be nothing but trouble to you. Don't you love the Bible? Like, it's just straight up, this is what happens. And it's not even like, oh, it's saying it's going to happen and it never did happen. We have the Israelites' track record of what was happening. Anyway, I won't ramble on and on, but Joshua 23 is an excellent chapter to consider, because the devil is just looking for any opportunity. And so when you think of the practices of Halloween, the activity, they all have a purpose. So just because you don't want that purpose to happen, or you're hiding under the cloak of Christianity, doesn't stop the consequences of engaging in those things. And I'll give you an example. The activity of, let's say, carving pumpkins, right? It's an activity that can be looked at as innocent. It's one that you could say, oh, we're not celebrating Halloween. It's more of like a fall festival type of vibe, or, you know, something like that. Well, The question should always be, where did it stem from? What is the purpose of it? What is attached to it? So I believe I posted the link in the chat, history.com, Legend of the Stingy Jack. And I just want to read the story because, oh, I shouldn't say it's funny, but it is a little bit, but just considering the history of it. 3 paragraphs, I'll be fast. People have been making jack-o'-lanterns at Halloween for centuries. The practice originated from an Irish myth about a man nicknamed Stingy Jack. Now, according to the story, Stingy Jack invited the devil to have a drink with him. True to his name, Stingy Jack didn't want to pay for his drinks. So he convinced the devil to turn himself into a coin that Jack could use to buy the drinks. Once the devil did so, Jack decided to keep the money and he put it in his pocket next to a silver cross, which prevented the devil from changing back into his original form. Jack eventually freed the devil under the condition that he could not bother Jack for 1 year, and that Jack, should he die, the devil would not claim his soul. The next year, Jack again tricked the devil into... Okay, just reading this. Jack tricked the devil to climb into a tree to pick a piece of fruit. While the devil was in the tree, Jack carved a sign of a cross into the tree's bark so that the devil couldn't come down until the devil promised Jack not to bother him for 10 more years. Soon after, Jack died. As the legend goes, God did not allow such an unsavory figure into heaven. This is Jack we're talking about. So Jack wasn't allowed in heaven. The devil, upset by the trick Jack played on him and keeping his word not to claim his soul, would not allow Jack into hell. So now you just have this spirit floating around. So he sent Jack off into the dark night with only a burning coal to light his way. Jack put the coal in a carved out turnip and has been roaming the earth ever since. The Irish began to refer to this ghostly figure as Jack of the Lantern and then simply Jack-o'-lantern, right?
Wow.
So in this legend, you have the spirit roaming around and you have these lanterns. Now, can you picture a Christian carving a pumpkin and putting it in front of their door? What message is that sending? Not just to us humans, but the spirit world. Again, the devil is just looking for an entrance into our lives. We need to be on guard.
Wow, that's crazy.
Yeah. Actually, does it matter about the design? Because you obviously have the pumpkins with like the triangle eyes and the evil smiles. But let's say, what if you were doing something with flowers? Is it just the pumpkin itself being carved and on the holiday associated with it? Or is it a specific image that you carve out of it?
No, the image doesn't matter. But I think I will say this, context matters. Because if you're going to say, oh, we're going to do this activity and we're going to specifically do it around Halloween, that's an issue. But like in April, if you have this, they use turnips, potatoes. If you just have this fruit, just making a carving out of anything, that's not demonic. It doesn't have some dark hidden meaning. But context is everything. You can't take away the name but still be within the context of something and then think it's all right. Yeah. We can't like outwit the devil.
Wow, interesting.
Yeah.
And also, I mean, if you have kids, if you tell the kids, hey, we're gonna do this activity, also, I mean, they're gonna be racing, like, you know, when they're gonna be, 15, 8.
Yeah. So this next question is it okay to say Happy Halloween just to be nice? I wanted to ask due to me not liking the holiday.
Yeah, I mean, I think like if you don't support and you don't agree with the day, I think just sort of like engaging in it in a way that you would, just sort of like, I don't know, I think it's a statement to not say that. You know what I mean? And if I disagree with it and people are running around going, Happy Halloween, and it's like, Happy Reformation Day, people are going to be like, well, what do you mean by that? I think you can use it as a point to kind of show where you stand with it. And then also, it might spark an interesting conversation. But yeah, I don't necessarily agree with saying Happy Halloween. I think you can be nice. You should always be nice, right?
Yeah.
No matter how people are, you don't want to offend them, I jotted down just a couple verses here I wanted to read to you for this. Ephesians 4:32 says, "Be kind to one another, tenderhearted, forgiving one another, as Christ has forgiven you. Right? You know, you think about that, like, you know, don't just run around and condemn people, because there's probably a lot of stuff that we could be condemned for. So we want to just be nice in general. We want to constantly always, you know, give people the you know, the golden rule, right? Romans 12:10, love one another in brotherly affection and outdo one another in showing honor. Like, you know, like always strive to build bridges, not burn them down. You know what I mean?
Right.
Yeah.
I guess you also kind of answered this next question, which is, how do I approach fellow believers that participate in pagan holidays?
Well, I mean, I would just tell them right off the bat, like, what, do you like Satan? Oh no, maybe that's probably not the right approach. You don't, once again, you don't want to just immediately offend for the sake of offending. I
Right.
think that you can be clear in your message, you can be clear in your stance without like making other people just immediately awkward. I mean, you know,
You can pray for
carry
them.
around tracts at just how evil Halloween is and hand it to them.
Yeah, I agree. I
Yeah.
because I
I mean,
No,
we care
I
with
was
love, you
thinking-
know, we
I
care
was-
with love. I mean, you care for that person. It's like, hey, bro, I mean, you didn't know about this stuff. I mean, why you do that? Or
Exactly. I
in a
think
nice way.
you always want to look for an occasion to share, right?
Right.
But I think sometimes we can run around and beat people over the head with the truth.
Right.
And I think that it's not as productive as waiting for the Holy Spirit to actually work out a scenario to where somebody would be like, hey, I said happy Halloween and you said something different. Like, well, why
Or
did you say
something
that?
rude.
Yeah, you know what I
Right.
mean?
It's
Like,
not just that. Sometimes we wait for people to be in the midst of it to say something. And how messed up is that? They're there enjoying themselves, doing whatever, and then you come in as like a downer and be like, oh, this is terrible. That should be a discussion from way before,
Right.
whenever the opportunity shows itself. We shouldn't be waiting for.
Right.
Yeah,
the
sometimes you
time.
can't help it. You know, like if you're at the grocery store and it's a cash register, I mean, and they're like, happy Halloween, you know.
Well, yeah. But I'm just talking about addressing it in general.
Yeah, with your friend
Yeah.
group,
Yeah.
family, yes.
I was at a table one time with a bunch of vegans, and we were at this place that was serving us, so you know we weren't in control of the food, and they set down a dessert that had chocolate in it. And one of the guys that was sitting at the table, I mean, he grabbed out that piece of chocolate and he threw it on the table and was just like, I just cannot believe they would serve us chocolate.
Wow.
And I was just like, are you gonna eat that? But I think that it set this tone at the table that if anybody was there that maybe just saw differently with the health issue, they would not approach that guy and ask him for anything.
Yeah.
So I think the lesson that we can draw out of that is like, you know, God will provide ways for us to engage with our coworkers, engage with people that participate in this, and maybe open up the door for an opportunity for us to discuss where the origins or you know what some of these things were. But let the Holy Spirit lay those times out.
Yeah. People were attracted to Jesus. They found him beautiful. They wanted to be in his company. You know, that's the way we need to be. The things
Right.
that we believe and espouse, we should be attractive people to other people. Not, and I'm not talking about physical beauty. It's like who we are should be attractive.
Right.
That's right.
Right. And it makes me think of Mary when when the Pharisees had brought her in to be stoned. And Jesus didn't focus on the prostitution part, you know, and so she became one of his most devoted followers. So yeah, we definitely need to give people grace, because I know like sometimes people who do celebrate Halloween, they probably haven't done exhaustive research on it. So they're in a way innocently celebrating it. But yeah, the information is there for all of us, but we should definitely offer grace.
That's right.
Next question. Is it wrong for churches to do a fall festival on the night of Halloween to get the kids off of the street at night?
Yeah.
Now
Such
that
a
you
good
just
question, right? I remember when I was a kid that actually happened. There was a church I was going to and they had something going on, and you know, we went to church instead of being on the streets for Halloween. But I've also been trick-or-treating and all that, you know. I mean, in my life it's been different things at different times. Yeah, we actually got several variations of this question, and I guess that's the first thing I would say is, like we've been talking about, it's important not to assume motive, right? You don't want to go to your church and be like, well, you guys are just idiots, you know, for taking the kids off the street. You know, somebody very it's not that their logical conclusion is correct, but they may be thinking something like, well,
Got to do something.
if I don't do something, then they're gonna be on the street. Wouldn't it be better for them to be here? It's a perfectly, you might say, logical or kind or reasonable motive, right? Like, well, yeah, we don't want them on the street, so we will do something at church. But that's also easy to fall into a bit of a trap, because two wrongs don't make a right, right? You know, and the lesser of two evils is still evil at the end of the day. But don't approach people like, you know, hammer them. And I said this the other day in worship here. It's like, to a hammer, everything's a nail, right? So be gentle with people. Likely the problem with this type of situation is that the church sees itself as competing with the world. And as Christians, oftentimes we have that mindset as well. We need to learn to educate with the right mindset. And so I'm just going to ask a couple of questions for you guys to think about. One is your mindset, I can't, or I choose not to? Right?
That's actually a really excellent
Wow,
point.
yeah.
I can't do this. I hear this all the time. People accusing Christians of, you can't do this and you can't do that. Or they'll even say it themselves. I can't do this, or I can't do that. No. What's your mindset? Is it I can't, or I choose not to? Right? And then ask yourself, why do I choose to do the things that I do? Why am I choosing that way? There must be a reason, right? And that reason should be founded on biblical principles. Along with those questions, do I see myself as an oddity? Have I espoused a mindset where I am just totally estranged from everyone around me, and it comes out in my personality, it comes out in my speech, it comes out in my lifestyle, to the point where people are like, yeah, that guy's just weird, and I would never approach him, I would never ask him any questions, I would never, yeah, you're just strange, like, you know, and you're such an odd, you know, bird that it's unattractive to people, right? Which is pushing them away. Do I wear the badge of scorn, presumed or otherwise, on a chip of my shoulder? Sometimes we walk around and it's like, you know, we assume we know what other people think about us. It's like, well, those Christians, you know, and so you get a chip on your shoulder and it's like, well, I'm just going to be angry about this whole thing and tell everybody what they shouldn't do. That's not attractive, right? So on the flip side of that, do I approach these things with joy and peace and an invitation to something better? If people see there's something better inside of you, if you have something to offer them, if you can talk to them about Halloween in a way that they've never heard of, that is, you know, extremely attractive, that draws people. That's what Jesus did. He drew people in. And then they were like, man, whatever that guy has, I want that. And then the other things, they don't even matter, right? They fall away. So just to kind of further clarify, there's nothing wrong with gathering on any particular day for like just gathering. Going back to what Kendi said, is what's the context, right? Why are you gathering? What's the whole purpose of your gathering?
Right.
You know, so are you getting together at church? Take, for example, you have Halloween and you get your church together and you fast and pray. Is there something wrong with that? Because it's Halloween? No. What if there's kids there? Nothing wrong with that, right? It's the context. What are you doing? Are you doing all the same things that you would do outside? Now we have to reevaluate our situation, because it's not any difference. You've just changed the location.
Right.
I for our church, they actually do a fall festival, and it's really neat. It's like a barn party. In fact, if I didn't know what day it was around or coming up near, I wouldn't even associate the two together whatsoever, because it's like people show up with cowboy hats and boots, and there's a, you know, band with a banjo and that kind of stuff, and they have games and food, and, you know, everybody brings something, and it's like this time for our whole church to get together, and they share testimonies and sing songs together, and often it's, you know, like hymns and things like that. So I think that there is an appropriate means to do something that gets the church families together and could potentially just steer them totally away from this thing.
Yeah, it's because I've been around with different, churches, and I know that they do for the children, candy, and they dress up. Maybe not for like evil stuff, ghosts and Dracula and all stuff, but they dress up like doctors, and things like that. It's not evil, and some people. What do you guys think about that?
Well, it's interesting in the research. It wasn't that the Druids and these other people were dressing up as something specific to ward off the devils. They were just dressing up in costumes, period. And warding off the devils. That's why you have a choice as to whatever you want to dress up in. What's the purpose of dressing up?
Yeah.
Right.
That's the question.
Yeah, and it just makes me think, is it just an alternative to this holiday? Because let's say you want your kids may feel left out from the world, and you
I got my candy for you
right,
guys
and you don't want them to
home.
rebel, so you're like, all right, let's find a nice alternative. So I guess, is it okay to make alternatives of evil holidays, I guess, or pagan holidays?
Like a veggie Halloween.
But you're still celebrating it on Halloween. That's the thing. Like, it's like a fall festival. What's the difference between it and August versus in...
I think there is a danger of really making something so close, but it's just kind of slightly off that, like you said, when your kids all of a sudden get up to the certain age that they're going to be able to choose, I guarantee you they're going to be confronted with this topic. And so it's like, well, I've been celebrating it sort of in this, this sort of like...
Might as well just join it.
Yeah, right? It's a simple step into the other one, whereas I really appreciate the approach of just saying, hey, you can be... don't have to engage in it whatsoever at all, and then
or making it something special always around that particular time.
Right.
A friend of mine was saying that they take their kids camping that weekend, but it's also something that they do throughout the year. But their whole thing is they wanted to remove their kids from that altogether. They didn't want to deal with like their doorbell being rung,
That's
so
a
they
great
just
idea.
left town.
in Brazil they do this a lot during the festivals that happen called Carnival. The whole church, just to get the church together, they go up into these retreat areas in the mountains and things like this, and the purpose is really to remove the church members from either the temptation or whatever. And it's like, then they have like games and things like this. So one could look at that and be like, oh, you're just making a church version of that up in the mountains, but it's like, no, we're not. It's like totally different, and the purpose of it is to really offer something that doesn't leave you to be tempted to do that.
Right.
I asked my youngest daughter, I don't know, this past week, and I asked her, I was like, hey, how do you feel that you never celebrate Halloween? Now that you're older, do you think that you miss out something? Maybe, young kids, around in school. And he said, no, why I need to celebrate that? So I was like, yeah.
Yeah, great input. So this next question is, how did Halloween become mainstream even among Christians?
So we kind of touched on this in the very beginning. I hate to throw a church under the bus, but sorry, Catholicism was one that really started blending a lot of this. They basically, their motive in the very beginning was really, you could say, probably a good motive, where they were like, hey, how can we witness to people and incorporate them? But I think that they were doing a double negative here, and by creating a place where you're engaging in it and making it comfortable, then all of a sudden it's like, now you've got this problem on your hands, because you can't quite say this is evil or of the devil if you're out there condoning it. You know what I mean? So Pope Gregory, he was one that really kind of first started incorporating that into the whole scene. And I think you might have a couple slides in here. This is Pope Gregory the First right here. I find it very interesting, like, this really super dark picture of the Pope. You would think that this person would be someone that's representing religious ideas and heaven and God, and it's just interesting that they portrayed it in this way. But go ahead and click to the next slide. So if you want to look into this more, into this connection, so it's not just us saying this, The History Channel actually has a whole article on there about how really the Catholic Church is the one that sort of Christianized Halloween and sort of put the rubber stamp on it that it was okay. And really that's kind of in our modern world, that's how we Christians began to sort of blur the lines here, coming from what Kendi shared at the beginning, where it was really a Druid, a cult, witchcraft, like people steered clear of that kind of thing. When the church puts its stamp on there, this is an example of how it becomes dangerous when we as the church put our rubber stamp of approval onto certain things, where it kind of comes to. And so you guys can look that up. The link hopefully will be in the description there, or just Google the History Channel or the history.com, the early Catholic Church, how it Christianized Halloween.
It's interesting how the Gnostic, or maybe also the New Age view, is kind of seen all throughout this, because we're putting ourselves in the place of God. If you have the day before where you ward off the evil spirits so you can have All Saints Day the next day, well, it's not our job to be warding off spirits, it's God's.
Right.
Wow.
We don't have the power to do that.
Right.
And then bringing in all the saints, well, that just goes into the state of the dead, which is a whole nother topic. I understand that, but yeah, just being careful not to put ourselves on the pedestal or even on the same level as God by engaging in these things and justifying it as it being for our good, because it's not.
I would agree.
Yeah.
So what is Halloween? What is the meaning of the Halloween?
Hallow means something that's like
The saint something.
respected, right? And I don't remember the
Respected.
blend. Yeah, it was like the ween part of it came from, I think, the
The Eve,
Right.
right?
Celtic.
The original was All Hallows Eve,
Hallows Eve. That's
and then
what
it became
was.
Halloween.
Yeah. Yeah, interesting. In Mexico, Halloween, well, we don't translate it, literally, like you were saying, but we call it the Nights of the Witches, or the Witches' Day.
Well, yeah.
So, I mean, parties is like, the Nights of the Witches, Halloween, and there's a little witch, on the back of the name or something like that.
Party the night before, show up to mass the next morning.
Yeah.
Hey.
That's the culture.
Which, on that topic though, this next question is, can you please highlight the cultural pitfalls like Dia de los Muertos,
Yeah.
Day of the Dead?
Right.
I see it as a huge deal, especially around Mexican culture in California.
Yeah, I mean, it's a huge thing. I mean, it's not just like, oh, it's a party or something like that. It's part of the culture, and it's kind of like Memorial Day, here. But it can be like two different things. You can go to the cemetery and clean up and think about bringing roses or flowers and stuff like that. But the thing is that the Day of the Dead is like celebration of the dead. It's kind of like respect to the death. But the thing is that at nighttime is a different things, so it's more ritual and more a little dark. And I mean, it's a huge party, in Mexico, it's a huge party, and respect dead and stuff like that. But the thing is the evil spirit, I mean, the evil people, they practice that kind of stuff, witchcraft and everything. That's a perfect time to, and around the world to, do animal sacrificial and all this crazy stuff. But it's a big thing. I didn't grow up with that culture because I grew up Christian, and we didn't do that kind of stuff. And they do some candles and altars and put pictures and it's for the dead people, And my parents, they will tell me that we don't need to mess around with dead,
Right.
With that kind of practices, the devil and all stuff. But I remember one time I really celebrate that, and I pushed my parents because I saw my friends, they were celebrating that. And I was like, please, I really want to go hang out with my friends. And my mom's like, please don't let my son to go. And my dad was like, oh, okay, that's fine. Just one time. But that time that I went and hang out with them and, all the party thing, it just drew me. I really enjoyed it. And later on when I was growing up, I mean, I was every year hang out. And I think, but yeah, it's a culture thing.
Yeah.
When you say the Day of the Dead, I mean, it's part of Mexico thing. And if you don't celebrate, it's kind of like weird, like, what's wrong with you? But
Well, the devil is
So let's do
the
things.
devil is clever, and if he can wrap in some sort of cultural, emotional thing. Like, when you think about it, like, why would you not want to respect someone that you loved and that lived on this planet or whatever like that? And then to rope it into that, it's pretty sinister. But then look at what he's done with Halloween. It's like you've taken this really evil day and you've now made it about cute kids dressing up, and they're so cute, and you want to see them cute. You know, it's like the devil is just really clever on getting you involved in his thing.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And I think it's super important to focus more on Christ during that time, because the world obviously is putting us in this mindset of Halloween. So, I mean, every commercial right now, every Disney, ABC Family, which is now, I think, Freeform, everything is showing just scary movies right now. So they're clearly getting us in this mindset for an entire month, you know?
Yeah.
So I think it's definitely a time to just lean in closer to Christ.
Yeah. Talk about commercials. This morning, my wife shared with me a commercial of Tricks. No, Tricks.
The cereal?
The cereal?
No, the candy, the chocolate.
Oh, yeah.
Twix.
Twix.
Yeah, Twix. I don't buy those things. I don't know. So Twix. Have you guys seen the new one commercial about Halloween special?
Actually, I think was it with the witch? And
Yeah,
the
with the
plant
witch.
died and she
No.
oh.
It's maybe we're gonna do another show about it. Just like reaction, but it's like pushing agenda for young kids and witches and all stuff. It was
Well,
crazy.
Who was telling me that you had some statistics? I don't remember which one of you girls, how many Ouija boards are put on the shelf, or like there's more that are sold at this time of the year than anything else. Maybe it wasn't you guys that was happening.
I didn't have the statistics. I just went out to the store and I saw just a bunch of Ouija boards on the shelf. That was it. And it's
Walmart.
no, it was like TJ Maxx or Marshalls
okay.
or something. Yeah.
But isn't that interesting that like all of a sudden at this time of the year, it's like, yeah, all this just evil stuff just gets thrown out there. I heard a statistic, how many outfits are sold in the U.S. for pets? $490 million.
Really?
$490 million.
That's a
Wanna
lot.
make them look cute.
That's so much money. Like I think I remember seeing a statistic of what it would cost to help world hunger, and it was like in the 300 million range. I mean, that's
What?
like
Wow.
that's ridiculous
You took it
for a
there.
year.
Wow.
Yeah,
Right.
Well,
not
yeah.
to solve it forever, but
So check this out. This is, well, I don't know if it's
Crazy.
statistics, but in Manhattan, New York, they're renting a huge building. I'm sure you guys see this store before, the Spirit of Halloween or Halloween Spirit, that they sell,
Oh, yeah.
you know, outfits. And,
Yeah, it opens around here too about that time.
yeah, that time.
Yeah.
Just for renting that month, it costs $30,000
wow,
for 1 month
for the building.
for the building.
Wow.
But they pay it.
Yeah,
So they pay, they bring some money because a lot of people are gonna go there, but $30,000 a month.
that's
So,
insane.
Yeah, man.
Wow.
You actually have a really a quote after. Do you want to read it? Or
yes,
do you want me to read it?
it's so to me it's so amazing how the dark world that they do things, but let me tell you, they tell the truth. Anton LaVey, the founder of the Satanist Church, right?
Yes.
And it says, I'm glad the Christian parents, I mean, can you imagine that guy said, I'm so happy the Christian parents let their children worship the devil at least just one night, bro. I mean, you let your kids just worship Satan for one night.
Wow.
And that's October 31st.
Wow.
I mean, can you imagine
Nah.
the founder?
Yeah.
I mean, it's not some dude in the
Yeah.
corner.
That ought to really tell you where this
Yeah.
is all leading.
I was actually watching this testimony of this ex-Satanist. I can't remember his first name, but his last name is Ramirez.
John.
Yeah, maybe John Ramirez. And he was saying that he said, all while I was a Satanist, I never saw like none of us would ever just say, oh, I think I'm going to go to church and celebrate Easter.
That's right.
Like they just didn't celebrate Christian holidays like that. So it's like, it's crazy that as Christians, we just openly celebrate or we want to celebrate satanic holidays.
Yeah, Satan, they don't go to church at least on Good Friday, right? That's what he was saying.
Right.
And also he was saying, John Ramirez, I mean, really amazing testimony. I just want to bring this thing, the candies. I mean, that guy, he was practicing Satanism, I mean, more than 25 or 30 years or something. And he said he said that they pray over those candies.
Wow.
Witches, they pray over those candies. And sometimes like, why are my children acting like that? I mean, of course, sugar high,
Yeah.
but talk about the evil, the darkness of the world. They act like that too. I mean,
That's a good point.
It's bad.
Because that also speaks to how much we believe our own religion.
Wow.
Because you think we pray before we start the show.
So true.
We pray over the tracks we give out, saying, Holy Spirit, please go with this and press upon this person's heart. The devil can do that too. And if we believe it's working on our side, it's also working on his side. So it is true. And then you talk about, like, was it Sony Studios that pray over the records of the music?
Oh, yeah.
And it goes
Capitol
out?
Todd.
I mean,
Capitol
stuff is,
Records, John Todd talked about that.
Wow.
stuff is happening.
It
Be
is.
careful.
That's right.
All right, next question. Tips on what to say to coworkers that ask why I don't celebrate Halloween.
Because I don't like Satan. I mean, here's a Bible tract. You want to read about it? No, I'm just kidding. I think that
They could
literally,
save that soundbite and just play it.
right? Literally, I think that once again, here's an opportunity for you to really engage with your coworkers in an intimate way. And, if they ask and they're coming to you, I mean, pray that the Holy Spirit gives you those little divine moments. But here also what I want to encourage you, don't be an ignorant Christian. Do some research.
That's right.
Look it up. I mean, look at what we've been finding out, and the questions come. We do a little bit of research, and we're like, okay, what does the Bible say about this and that? Know what you're gonna say, because every year this may potentially come up in your workplace.
Right.
So do a little research, have an answer, like what the Bible says. Always have an answer and be ready to give that answer to somebody, because that may be the thing that sparks them to say, you know what, what else do you know about the Bible,
Yeah.
Right. And there's something powerful in our lives being a witness, that we are faithfully devoted to Christ and don't partake in things that we don't believe in, just in our faith.
Like he'd say, we choose. I mean, we can celebrate. Hey, you know what? I choose not to celebrate. And a nice way to build bridges. Not.
Yep.
This
Person coming to you, I'm guessing they noticed something about you that's different. You don't celebrate it. You didn't say Happy Halloween, whatever. And so when they're coming to you and asking you for information, now it's time for you to say, hey, I do have something. Would you really like to know why I don't?
Totally.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, my next question, though, because there's the one, go to the next one. Right, so that's Keats. The one after that, is that the one that says, how can we handle looking weird? I think that ties in great with the one you just answered, Scotty. You want to read the question?
Oh, right. So this question is, how can we handle when we look weird due to not celebrating Halloween?
Yeah, so you can have all the answers you want and handle it perfectly, but you're still, in a sense, removed from all of that. It could look like you're an outcast or whatever the case. It can be quote unquote weird. Well, looking weird, yay, it's a regular occurrence for a Bible believing Christian. I think it's okay. Like, it's not something we should be afraid of. And we should stand our ground just like Jesus did.
Right.
And despite Jesus standing his ground, people were still attracted to him.
That's right.
They still were drawn to him.
That's right.
So that's some encouragement. Our consistency is our greatest witness. So that's another thing. Like, it's one thing to say no and then kind of participate in it, or like you kind of lose the power of your no, the power of your explanation by not being consistent with it. So also, when it comes to what you have to say, if people are coming at you any kind of way saying that you're overreacting or what you're saying is crazy, you could pull up history.com, National Geographic, say this is straight facts. You calling me crazy? Are you calling history crazy?
Yeah.
And just have something to back yourself up.
And what's sometimes nice about that is it's not always coming from, oh, you just crazy Christians are saying this. No, that's a historical fact where that stuff comes from.
Right.
And they're not trying to influence you whether you're not against Christianity. So sometimes it's good to look at other sources other than just what the Bible says, because maybe there's not common ground there that people would see that. I do have a question though. Marilyn gave us a super chat. Yay! Thank you, Marilyn.
Thank you.
And what she's asking is, what about Christians who dress up as the Bible characters to take back Halloween? What would you say to that?
Yeah. So we did address that earlier when Alex was sharing his thing. and I was saying that it doesn't really matter what you dress up as. The point is that you're dressing up, and that activity was used by the Druids to ward off evil spirits, to ward off demons. So it doesn't matter how you participate, it's the fact that you are participating. It doesn't remove the consequence. It doesn't remove Satan having an opportunity to enter into that space. So I just stay away.
Yeah, I would almost agree. I think sometimes just trying to find a way to engage in that activity, I know it's going to spark a conversation. Obviously, you're running around, and who are you? Oh, I'm John the Baptist. You know, like you may have some good interaction there. I don't know, but I think once again, I think the most powerful statement we can do as Christians is to not engage in these things.
Right, because I think it can be confusing, like, you know, because then you have someone say, oh, well, I have a friend who's a Christian and they celebrate Halloween, so why don't you? And it just puts a lot of confusion in the church, you know. So I think it's important to be consistent.
Right, and what if, like, oh, I became a Christian by meeting someone while they were trick-or-treating, but I can't trick-or-treat anymore, so I guess I can't bring other people. Like, it's like using a means to bring someone in, but then turning around and telling them to never do that means again.
Right.
So it's conflicting ideas.
Yeah.
I have a question. How you, when knocking the door, I mean, if you're there, I mean, it is wrong to give maybe not candy, maybe a piece of fruit, or
No.
That's actually
no,
originally what they
no.
used to give.
or what's called those
Toothbrush.
That's good. I'll go for toothbrush over
Floss.
fruit. Yeah, because before they were giving out candy, they would give out fruit, specifically apples. but
Fruit,
we'll get
nuts,
to that
and
later.
ale. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, okay, hold on. Okay, with this question. So yeah, the next question is, what is the best thing to do on that day, October 31st, as Christians, instead of just staying indoors, ignoring the reality that is going on outside? Great question.
It is a great question. I actually like the way that one was put.
Yeah.
So I'll answer with another question. What's the best thing to do on any day? Right?
Wow.
Oftentimes we let days or times dictate who we are or what we do. And as Christians, we should be found to be consistent, right? It didn't matter to Daniel that a law was passed. He was still going to pray, right? It shouldn't matter to us, like, well, what the day is, not day of the week, not holiday. Our first and foremost thought should be, is my life dedicated to Christ today? This is the only day that you have, that you know that you have. You may not even have the whole day, right? You're not guaranteed tomorrow. So what's the best thing you can do? The best thing you can do is be consecrated to Christ that day, right? In everything that you do. In addition to that, you know, I would say it's a great day to talk about the Reformation. We've kind of already mentioned that. And we've already talked about, you know, making your beliefs attractive. If you're just tuning in, we've talked about making your beliefs attractive. Your beliefs and your personality, the way you interact with people, should be full of hope and joy, right? You should have an answer for them. But I want to speak to a couple of things that I think are kind of ironic about Halloween and just people in general. First of all, Halloween happens to coincide with flu season. Is that a coincidence? I don't know. We're handing out a bunch of candy as a flu virus is probably coming around, and you're going to tank your immune system or your kids. We also live in Western society, at least Western society. We're very broken, right? And we often mask who we are. And going around and putting in costumes on or masks on is really kind of like a metaphor for I'm masking who I am. It shows that I'm not satisfied with who I am a lot of times. There's some, you know, if we have Christ, we don't have to mask anything. We can just be in Him. And dissatisfaction with who we are oftentimes drives us to substances. In this case, I don't know, maybe it's driving us to candy, you know, make us feel a little better. We get a sugar rush. But those two things, at least in my mind, they're kind of interesting metaphors for just how we are in Western society. We often mask ourselves and we often go to something to make us happy. And it's almost like we're being primed for that on Halloween. Yeah, it's okay to mask who you are and go get something that tastes sweet. Problem is, candy tastes good, but it doesn't satisfy, right? And that's much of life. There's a lot of things that we can do in life. They might feel good, they might taste good, the experience might be great, but they don't satisfy because they're not rooted in Christ. So, yeah.
Yeah. Great response. So, this next question says, why do some Christians hate on horror movies and Christians like me that like horror genre? So this hit a personal chord for me because I loved horror movies. I mean, I've seen Insidious, The Grudge, Conjuring, American Horror Story. I mean, name it, I've seen it. And it wasn't up until like last year that I just really felt convicted not to watch it anymore. And the reasons are, number one, it glorifies Satan, glorifies death, sexual immorality. I mean, they will literally have like sex rituals, and it's just not something that is godly. And it also promotes fear. And so scary movies to me are like Satan's ministry. And do you really want to support it? We're focusing on him. He wants us to do that. And then it starts to affect, now you can't sleep in the dark anymore because you feel like something's under your bed or in your closet, or that coat suddenly looks like this scary figure, and it's just, and if the Bible speaks against fear, why are we putting ourselves in it? So, there was a Bible verse, James 4, verse 7, which says, submit yourselves, therefore, to God, resist the devil, and he will flee from you. Amen. When you're watching scary movies, you're not resisting him, you're being entertained by him, and he loves that. Because the more you focus on Satan, the less you're going to be focusing on Christ, and it's kind of like Satan's power becomes greater, in a way over your life. There's also 1 Peter 5, verses 8-9, which says, be sober-minded and be watchful. The enemy prowls like a roaring lion, seeking someone to destroy and devour. So those are just some things to keep in mind. Horror movies, I mean, just the whole killing in general is against the commandments. So it's just not something that I think a Christian should watch, especially if we're supposed to be used for godly purposes, and we don't want to expose ourselves to these things. So,
Amen.
Totally.
Well, speaking of killing, I gotta get out of here.
What a segue.
My wife and I are going on a marriage retreat right now, and so I'm watching this clock going, I gotta get out of here. But you guys are welcome to stay and continue the conversation. Do you want to keep going? You have a little bit more to go.
I got to get going soon too.
What time you want to put off?
We can cut off anytime.
1:15?
As we deliberate in front of our viewers.
We're about to this is you guys are getting a little window in how we operate here.
I'm really surprised about Brittany's last answer because right before the show we had to bring her down, almost handed her a paper bag. She was nearly hyperventilating. So the fact that she would even watch a scary movie I find really interesting.
Yeah. Well, I think it's very big of you also to be as transparent and open and honest, because we want you guys to know as well. Like we're in this mess as well. We're battling and struggling through some of these things as well. So I really appreciate your honesty and coming to the table. And I like the fact that God has convicted you on that. I know which point you were convicted on, and I think it's really amazing. But also sometimes God doesn't want us to go through those things, but he can use our experience of going through those to help other people that are stuck in that same thing. So if anybody out there is in this same boat, trust me, there's light at the end of the tunnel.
There is, and your mind can be renewed. I cannot watch those things the same anymore. It just makes me sick to my stomach. So
awesome. Praise God.
I mean, we can, you gotta go, but
if you guys want to continue it forward,
way to end it right there.
Okay, well, there's actually one question.
Okay,
one more.
Which is actually, I believe it's the last one.
Halloween isn't going away?
Yeah, Halloween isn't going away. So how can we creatively transform it?
Ooh.
Well, that's my question.
Philosophical.
Hold on 1 second. Where are we at?
Last one.
I don't want to skip over. Keith, maybe talk a little bit about what the actual 31st was for a second.
What do you mean?
Yeah, I'm not.
Wasn't the 31st actually the Reformation Day?
Yes. 17.
Yeah.
It's sad to me that the devil is always changing the
no.
meaning of something.
No.
It wasn't?
It
or the
started
first?
off in the 3rd
November
century.
1st?
No, I mean, you're talking about two different things.
Two
So
different
you're
things.
talking about
Reformation.
origins of Halloween. He's
But
talking about Reformation
how
Day.
could the devil take something that he already
Had.
had?
Right.
The
So
Reformation came afterward.
in some ways, it's just depending on how you look at it. In one way, it's like putting a nail in the devil's coffin, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, 31st Reformation Day. This is the day that Martin Luther nailed the 95 Theses to the cathedral in Wittenberg in Germany, and it was from that the Protestant Reformation sprang. Important thing I think to remember in all of that is Martin Luther was a very devoted Catholic monk. You know, he did not hate his church. He wasn't trying to really say anything bad about his church. He wasn't trying to like bring his church down. What he was trying to do is help transform the mindset of those who were in it, you know, and with him. And he just had questions that he wanted answers. Eventually it drove him, you know, away from that because he got to the point where he couldn't reconcile the two. And that's where we have, you know, Protestantism springing from. And of course, since then, Protestantism has branched off, you know, as from Lutherans and then Calvinists and, you know, Baptists and Anabaptists and so on and so forth, Amish and all kinds of stuff. But yeah, that was
So there's a
October
creative
31st.
way to transform it, learn about some alternate thing that happened on that day, and, you know, make some you know, go to your church and share with you that positive information around that time frame, and just, you know, maybe some way of trying to take people's mind away from the evil and the dark, but sort of like focus on the light and show something amazing that happened around that same time.
But that doesn't mean you dress up as Martin Luther and nail 95 Theses
No,
to
probably
people's
not.
doors.
Probably not a good idea at that time of the year.
Right.
You know? Yeah. It might be in bad taste.
Yeah. Well,
Here in my notes here, I compared trying to transform Halloween to trying to transform the government. As Christians, I don't think that's our mission. Jesus came to earth, and his mission was to reach the heart of the individual, actually, not the heart of the system. So when it comes to what we should be changing, it's individuals, and as individuals change, then the culture changes, and so on and so forth. So
and Jesus didn't partake in a lot of the things that
that's right.
this world was doing, but yet he was so attractive.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
I agree with you. Focus on promoting the good, and then the bad will naturally dissipate. Yeah.
I like that.
Great point to end on. Thank you guys for watching, and obviously we literally go through every comment that you guys give in there. We actually spend a lot of time doing that, so thank you guys for actually giving us these questions. We hope that they did some justice. We cut out probably 3/4 of them, right?
Yeah,
Didn't have time.
we didn't.
This would be a 6-hour show if we literally
Right.
handled all the comments. So we
Right.
kind of pick and choose. But if there's something that you really want addressed, feel free to put that in the comments below. And if you haven't subscribed to our ministry, please do so.
Like,
Share our content. It's no good sitting on the shelf, right?
That's right.
Get it out to people. And I hope the one thing that you take away from this conversation is use every opportunity that you can to build a bridge, win a soul, and to share the love of Christ with somebody. Even in this dark day, that's what people are focusing on. They need to see the light of Christ. And we hope that you'll do that today.
Yeah.
We'll see you guys next Friday. Thanks for watching.
All right.